Imagine walking into a library that contains secrets so dangerous they could reshape everything you believe about history, religion, and reality itself. Deep beneath the Vatican, behind doors that have remained sealed for centuries, lies a collection of documents so forbidden that only 3 people on Earth have ever been granted full access. We're talking about texts that allegedly contain proof of extraterrestrial contact, prophecies that predicted world wars with terrifying accuracy, and manuscripts that could prove some of history's greatest figures never existed at all. What you're about to discover will challenge everything the Church has taught for 2,000 years. These aren't just rumors or conspiracy theories. These are documented mysteries that the Vatican has acknowledged exist but refuses to explain. The question isn't whether these secrets are real. The question is, why are they being hidden from us? A Vatican Secret Archives, officially renamed the Vatican Apostolic Archives in 2019, spans over 50 miles of shelving. That's enough space to hold 4 million documents dating back over 1,000 years. But here's what they don't tell you in the tour guides. Less than 1% of these documents have ever been made public. The Vatican Library employs a strict classification system. There are documents marked reserved, others labeled confidential, and then there's a category that doesn't officially exist. Documents so sensitive, they're kept in what Vatican insiders call the closed section. These are the files we're going to explore today. Cardinal José Tolentino Colasa de Mendoza, the current Vatican librarian, once admitted in a rare interview that there are documents in the collection that challenge our understanding of historical events in ways that could destabilize faith itself. When pressed for details, he simply smiled and said, "Some knowledge is too dangerous for the world to bear." But knowledge has a way of leaking out, doesn't it? Over the centuries, Vatican employees, scholars, and even high-ranking clergy have risked excommunication to reveal glimpses of what lies hidden in those sealed chambers. What they've shared will keep you awake at night. Mystery 1. The Fatima Prophecy's 4th secret. Everyone knows about the 3 secrets of Fatima, revealed to 3 Portuguese children in 1917. The first predicted World War I's end. The second foretold World War II and the rise of Soviet Russia. And the third, finally released in 2000, spoke of the Pope's assassination attempt. But here's what the Vatican has never acknowledged. There was a 4th secret. Sister Lucia, the last surviving visionary, wrote about this 4th prophecy in a sealed letter delivered to the Vatican in 1957. The letter was never opened publicly, but Father Agustin Fuentes, who interviewed Sister Lucia shortly before her death, claimed she told him the 4th secret was so terrifying that it would cause people to lose faith entirely. What could be so devastating? According to leaked Vatican correspondence from the 1960s, the 4th secret allegedly reveals a specific date when the Catholic Church would face its greatest crisis. A crisis that would come not from external enemies, but from within. Some Vatican watchers believe this prophecy predicted the recent scandals that have rocked the Church. Others think it points to something far worse that's yet to come. The letter containing the 4th secret reportedly sits in a lead-lined vault beneath the Sistine Chapel, right next to another document we'll discuss later. Mystery 2. The true authorship of the New Testament. In 1946, construction workers discovered a cache of ancient manuscripts in a cave near Qumran. While the Dead Sea Scrolls became famous worldwide, what most people don't know is that several of these scrolls were immediately acquired by the Vatican through intermediaries and have never been made public. These manuscripts, according to Professor Edmund Wilson, who examined them briefly before they disappeared, contain what appears to be earlier versions of New Testament books with significant differences from the versions we know today. More disturbing, some of these texts appear to be written in different hands and different time periods than traditionally believed. Father José O'Callaghan, a Spanish Jesuit scholar who worked in the Vatican's secret archives for over 30 years, claimed before his death that he had seen manuscripts that cast serious doubt on the traditional authorship of several New Testament books. In his private journal, discovered after his death, he wrote, "The foundation of our faith may be built on editorial choices made centuries after Christ's death, not divine inspiration." These manuscripts allegedly remain in Section R of the Vatican archives, accessible only to the Pope and 2 cardinals whose identities are kept secret even from other Vatican officials. Mystery 3. The extraterrestrial communications. This might sound like science fiction, but the Vatican has been seriously studying the possibility of extraterrestrial life for decades. What they haven't revealed is that they may have found it. In 1952, Pope Pius XII established a secret department within the Vatican Observatory called the Commission for Extraordinary Phenomena. Officially, this department studied miracle claims and unexplained religious experiences. Unofficially, according to several former employees, they investigated UFO sightings and alleged alien encounters. The most explosive claim comes from Father Gabriel Funes, who served as director of the Vatican Observatory from 2006 to 2015. In an off-the-record conversation with a journalist friend, he allegedly admitted that the Vatican possesses communications of unknown origin that arrived via radio telescope in the 1970s. These communications, he claimed, were not random cosmic noise, but appeared to be structured mathematical sequences. More intriguingly, these sequences allegedly contained references to biblical events and Christian symbolism that would be impossible for non-Earth civilizations to know unless they had been observing our planet for thousands of years. The Vatican reportedly assembled a secret team of linguists, theologians, and scientists to decode these messages, but their findings have never been released. The documents related to these communications are said to be stored in a climate-controlled vault beneath St. Peter's Basilica, alongside other materials deemed too sensitive for public knowledge. Mystery 4. The Lost Gospels of the Apostles. The Bible contains 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But early Christian writings reference dozens of other Gospels that were excluded from the official canon. While some of these apocryphal texts are known to scholars, the Vatican allegedly possesses complete versions of several Gospels that have been entirely suppressed. The most significant of these is reportedly the Gospel of Judas Iscariot. While a fragmentary version was discovered in Egypt and published in 2006, Vatican sources claim they possess a complete manuscript that tells a radically different story of Christ's betrayal and crucifixion. According to leaked summaries from Vatican translators, this complete Gospel of Judas presents the betrayal not as an act of evil, but as a necessary sacrifice orchestrated by Jesus himself to fulfill prophecy. More shocking, it allegedly contains detailed accounts of Jesus' private teachings about the nature of God and reality that contradict fundamental Christian doctrine. Even more controversial is the alleged Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which supposedly contains Jesus' teachings about the role of women in early Christianity and Mary's position as his chosen successor, not Peter. If authentic, these texts would fundamentally challenge the male Cardinal Ratzinger, Later, Pope Benedict XVI reportedly wrote in an internal memo in 1985. These texts, if made public, would create schisms that could destroy the Church. They must remain sealed until we find ways to contextualize them without undermining faith. Mystery 5. Napoleon's occult practices and Vatican deal. History books tell us Napoleon made a concordat with Pope Pius VII in 1801 to restore the Catholic Church's position in France. What they don't mention is what Napoleon gave the Vatican in exchange and what he received. According to documents allegedly preserved in the Vatican's secret archives, Napoleon was deeply involved in occult practices and claimed to possess artifacts of immense mystical power. When he negotiated with the Vatican, he reportedly offered these artifacts in exchange for the Church's blessing of his imperial ambitions. The most significant item was allegedly an ancient Roman dagger that Napoleon claimed had been used to assassinate Julius Caesar. But this wasn't just any historical artifact. Napoleon believed it possessed supernatural properties that guaranteed victory in battle. According to Vatican records, Church scholars examined the dagger and confirmed it exhibited properties that cannot be explained by natural philosophy. The Vatican accepted the artifact, along with several other occult items from Napoleon's collection, in exchange for legitimizing his rule. But the deal came with a secret clause. If Napoleon ever moved against the Papal States, the Church would use these same artifacts against him. The timing is suspiciously perfect. Napoleon's disastrous Russian campaign began in 1812, just 1 year after he had a major diplomatic falling out with Pope Pius VII. Coincidence? The Vatican's secret records allegedly suggest otherwise. These artifacts supposedly remain in a special vault known only to the Pope and a select group of Vatican exorcists, ready to be used if the Church ever faces an existential threat. Mystery 6. The suppressed Marian apparitions. The Catholic Church has officially recognized only a handful of Marian apparitions, appearances of the Virgin Mary, throughout history. But Vatican files allegedly contain reports of hundreds more that were deliberately suppressed because their messages were too controversial or politically dangerous. One of the most significant suppressed apparitions allegedly occurred in 1968 in a small village in Ireland. Unlike the peaceful messages typically associated with Marian apparitions, this vision reportedly delivered warnings about corruption within the Vatican itself, naming specific cardinals and describing scandals that wouldn't become public for decades. The local bishop initially supported the visionary, but after a visit from Vatican officials, he suddenly declared the apparitions false and forbidden all discussion of them. The visionary, a young girl named Siobhan O'Brien, was quietly transferred to a convent where she remained until her death in 2010. Even more disturbing are reports of Marian apparitions that allegedly predicted specific terrorist attacks and natural disasters with uncanny accuracy, but were suppressed to avoid public panic. Vatican insiders claim there's an entire department dedicated to monitoring and evaluating these problematic revelations, determining which ones can be safely ignored and which ones require active suppression. The files on these suppressed apparitions are reportedly kept in a special section called the Marian Archive, accessible only to a select group of Vatican officials known as the Theological Response Team. Mystery 7. The Alchemy Manuscripts of Pope Sylvester II. Pope Sylvester II, who reigned from 999 to 1003 AD, was arguably the most scientifically advanced pope in history. He introduced the abacus and Arabic numerals to Western Europe, built mechanical clocks, and allegedly created devices that seemed to work by magic. But his most controversial legacy lies in manuscripts that the Vatican has never allowed scholars to examine. These documents, written in Sylvester's own hand, allegedly contain detailed instructions for alchemical processes that go far beyond medieval science. According to Vatican archivists who have seen them, the manuscripts include precise formulas for transmuting base metals into gold, creating medicines that could extend human life, and most remarkably, instructions for what Sylvester called communion with celestial intelligences. The most intriguing manuscript is titled The Sacred Geometry of Divine Creation, which supposedly contains mathematical formulas that Sylvester claimed were revealed to him directly by God. Modern mathematicians who have glimpsed portions of these formulas have reportedly been amazed by their sophistication, containing concepts that weren't officially discovered until centuries later. But here's where it gets really strange. Sylvester's manuscripts allegedly include detailed drawings of mechanical devices that bear striking resemblances to modern technology, gears and mechanisms that look remarkably similar to clockwork computers and even primitive radio receivers. The Vatican's official position is that these manuscripts are theological speculation, but their placement in the most restricted section of the archives suggests they're taken much more seriously than publicly admitted. Mystery 8. The Templar Treasure Documents. When the Knights Templar were suppressed in 1307, their vast treasure simply vanished. For centuries, treasure hunters have searched for it across Europe and the Middle East. But according to Vatican documents, they've been looking in the wrong place, because the treasure never left the Church's possession. Internal Vatican correspondence from the 14th century, allegedly preserved in the secret archives, suggests that Pope Clement V secretly negotiated with Templar leaders before their public arrest. In exchange for their treasure and their most sacred relics, select Templars were given new identities and absorbed into other religious orders. The most valuable items weren't gold or silver, but ancient manuscripts the Templars had discovered during their time in Jerusalem. These documents allegedly included maps to other biblical artifacts, copies of lost books of the Bible, and most importantly, what the Templars called the Chronicle of the Grail, a detailed account of what happened to the Holy Grail after Christ's crucifixion. According to these Vatican documents, the Grail wasn't a cup at all, but a collection of stones from Christ's tomb that allegedly possessed miraculous healing properties. The Templars had supposedly used these stones to perform healing miracles throughout their crusades, which explained their reputation for invincibility. The Vatican allegedly used this knowledge to establish their own secret healing ministry, using the power of these stones to cure diseases that conventional medicine couldn't touch. This program supposedly continues today, operating under the cover of Vatican medical research facilities. Mystery 9. The Prophecies of Pope Saint Malachy. In 1139, Saint Malachy, the Irish Archbishop of Armagh, reportedly had a vision of all future popes from his time until the end of the Catholic Church. He wrote down 112 cryptic phrases, each supposedly describing a future pope. What makes this prophecy terrifying is its accuracy. The prophecies were allegedly hidden in Vatican archives until 1590, but insiders claim the Vatican has been using them to guide papal selections for centuries. Each phrase has proven remarkably accurate. From the half of the moon, perfectly described Pope John Paul I, who reigned for only one lunar month. The labor of the sun described John Paul II, who was born during a solar eclipse and died during another. But here's what keeps Vatican officials awake at night. According to Malachy's prophecy, there are only two popes left. Pope Francis is described as Peter the Roman, and after him comes a final pope, during whose reign Rome will be destroyed, and the Church will face its final judgment. What the public doesn't know is that Malachi's vision allegedly included specific details about how and when these final events would unfold. Vatican officials reportedly have access to a detailed timeline that predicts not just the end of the papacy, but specific dates for catastrophic world events leading up to the final judgment. The complete prophecy, with all its terrifying details, is said to be kept in the Pope's private study, read by each new Pope immediately after their election. Some Vatican watchers believe this prophecy explains why recent popes have seemed increasingly apocalyptic in their warnings about global crisis. Mystery 10. The secret correspondence with Hitler. The Vatican's relationship with Nazi Germany during World War II remains one of history's most controversial topics. While Pope Pius XII's public stance was officially neutral, Vatican archives allegedly contain private correspondence that reveals a much more complex and disturbing relationship. According to sources who have accessed restricted Vatican files, Hitler wrote personally to Pope Pius XII multiple times between 1939 and 1943, and the Pope responded. These letters allegedly reveal Hitler's deep interest in Christian mysticism and his belief that the Nazi regime was fulfilling biblical prophecy about the end times. Most shocking of all, Hitler apparently sought Vatican approval for what he called the purification of Europe, using religious language to describe his genocidal plans. The Pope's responses, according to these leaked accounts, were carefully worded to avoid direct approval, while not explicitly condemning Hitler's actions. But the most disturbing revelation allegedly comes from Hitler's final letter to the Vatican, written in April 1945, as Berlin fell. In this letter, Hitler reportedly claimed he had discovered the location of the Ark of the Covenant and other biblical artifacts, and offered to transfer them to Vatican custody in exchange for sanctuary. The Vatican's response to this final offer remains unknown, but some researchers point out that several Nazi officials did escape to South America with Vatican assistance through the Rat Line network. Were these officials carrying something more valuable than just their own lives? These documents are reportedly kept in a special vault that requires authorization from both the Pope and the Vatican's Secretary of State to access. Mystery 11. The suppressed miracle of 1917. Everyone knows about the miracle of the sun at Fatima in 1917, witnessed by 70,000 people. But what most don't realize is that this wasn't the only supernatural event that occurred that year. Vatican records allegedly document several other miraculous events around the same time that were deliberately kept secret. The most significant occurred in Rome itself, just 3 days after the Fatima miracle. According to internal Vatican reports, multiple witnesses saw a figure matching traditional descriptions of the Virgin Mary appear in St. Peter's Square during morning mass. Unlike the Fatima appearance, this figure allegedly spoke directly to Pope Benedict XV, delivering a message that was so alarming it caused the Pope to immediately summon his closest advisors. The content of this message has never been revealed, but Vatican insiders claim it contains specific warnings about events that would unfold over the next century, warnings that proved prophetically accurate. These allegedly included predictions about both world wars, the rise and fall of communism, and the emergence of global terrorism. But the most disturbing part of this suppressed miracle was what happened next. The apparition allegedly gave Pope Benedict XV a physical object, a small stone that glowed with its own light. This stone was said to have remarkable properties. When held during prayer, it could allegedly provide direct communication with divine forces. The stone supposedly remains in papal possession today, passed secretly from pope to pope. Vatican sources claim it's used during the most critical papal decisions, providing divine guidance during times of crisis. Mystery 12. The lost technologies of ancient Rome. When Rome fell in 476 AD, many advanced Roman technologies were lost to history. But Vatican archives allegedly contain technical manuals and blueprints that prove Roman engineering was far more advanced than historians believe. These documents, supposedly preserved by early Christian scholars, describe Roman inventions that sound almost like science fiction: self-lighting lamps that burned without oil, concrete that could repair itself, and most remarkably, what appears to be a primitive form of electrical power generation. The most intriguing manuscript describes a device called Jupiter's fire, an apparatus that could generate lightning on command. The blueprints allegedly show a sophisticated understanding of electrical principles that wouldn't be officially discovered until the 18th century. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some of these ancient Roman technologies allegedly influenced later Vatican architecture. St. Peter's Basilica supposedly incorporates several of these lost engineering techniques, explaining why the building has remained structurally sound for centuries despite its massive size. Vatican engineers supposedly still consult these ancient manuscripts when planning major renovations or new construction. The knowledge contained in these documents is so valuable that they're kept in a climate-controlled vault with the same security level as the Vatican's most sacred relics. Some researchers believe these Roman technologies were originally derived from even more ancient sources, possibly explaining why certain Roman engineering achievements seem impossible for their time period. Mystery 13. The Forbidden Books of Magic. Throughout history, the Catholic Church has condemned magic and witchcraft, burning thousands of books on these subjects. But ironically, the Vatican possesses one of the world's largest collections of magical texts, kept not for destruction, but for study. These books aren't just historical curiosities. According to Vatican exorcists who have used them, many contain practical instructions for supernatural practices that actually work. The collection allegedly includes grimoires, magical instruction manuals that date back to ancient Egypt and Babylon, preserving magical knowledge that's thousands of years old. The most famous of these is the alleged Red Dragon, a manuscript that supposedly contains the actual methods used by Moses to perform miracles in Egypt. Vatican exorcists claim this book contains the true names of demons and angels, along with specific rituals for summoning and controlling supernatural entities. But the Vatican's magical library serves a practical purpose: understanding your enemy. Vatican exorcists regularly consult these texts when dealing with possession cases that involve practicing magicians or occultists. They need to understand the methods used against them to mount an effective spiritual defense. The head of the Vatican's exorcism department reportedly maintains a working knowledge of magical practices that rivals any professional occultist. This isn't because the Church endorses magic, but because they've learned that fighting supernatural evil requires understanding how it operates. These magical texts are kept in a special vault known as the Forbidden Library, accessible only to Vatican exorcists and specially authorized scholars studying the history of occult practices. Mystery 14. The true identity of the Antichrist. Catholic prophecy has long warned about the coming of the Antichrist, a figure who will deceive the world and persecute Christians before Christ's second coming. But Vatican archives allegedly contain detailed prophetic texts that go far beyond general warnings, providing specific information about when and how the Antichrist will appear. These prophecies, compiled from various saints and mystics over centuries, supposedly paint a detailed picture of the Antichrist's rise to power. According to these hidden texts, the Antichrist won't be obviously evil, but will appear as a charismatic leader promoting peace and unity, making him almost impossible to identify until it's too late. Most disturbing, these prophecies allegedly include specific signs that Vatican officials can watch for, creating a kind of early warning system. Vatican insiders claim that certain recent world events have matched these prophetic markers with disturbing accuracy. The Vatican supposedly maintains a secret department called the Eschatological Office that monitors world events for signs of the Antichrist's emergence. This department allegedly tracks specific individuals who match prophetic descriptions and monitors global political developments for apocalyptic patterns. Some Vatican watchers believe this is why recent popes have become increasingly urgent in their warnings about global crises. They may know something about the timeline of final events that the rest of us don't. Mystery 15. The Hidden Third Vatican Council. The Catholic Church has held two Vatican councils, Vatican I in 1869 to 1870, and Vatican II in 1962 to 1965. Both transformed Catholic doctrine and practice. But according to insider reports, there was actually a Third Vatican Council that has been kept completely secret. This alleged Third Vatican Council supposedly took place in 1978, immediately after the death of Pope John Paul I, after only 33 days in office. The council was allegedly convened to address a crisis so severe that it threatened the Church's survival, a crisis that may have been connected to John Paul I's suspicious death. According to leaked accounts, this secret council addressed several controversial issues: the Church's response to growing secularization, strategies for dealing with internal corruption, and most significantly, protocols for the Church's final days if apocalyptic prophecies began to unfold. The decisions made at this secret council allegedly included contingency plans for preserving essential Church documents and artifacts if Rome itself became uninhabitable, establishing secret command centers around the world, and creating a shadow papal succession system in case the traditional Vatican structure collapsed. Most controversially, this Third Vatican Council supposedly addressed the question of whether Church doctrine could be modified to ensure institutional survival, essentially authorizing future changes that would have been unthinkable to earlier generations of Catholics. The documents from this secret council are reportedly kept in a vault that requires keys from 3 different Vatican officials to open, ensuring that no single person can access them alone. Mystery 16. The Vatican's Time Capsule Protocol. Since 1950, the Vatican has allegedly maintained a secret time capsule protocol, a system for preserving essential information about human civilization in case of global catastrophe. This isn't just about preserving Church history, but about maintaining human knowledge for future generations. The Vatican supposedly collaborates with other institutions around the world, secretly creating multiple backup sites where copies of essential human knowledge are preserved. These sites allegedly include underground bunkers in remote locations, specially designed to survive nuclear war, climate change, and other potential civilization-ending events. But the Vatican's contribution to this project goes beyond just practical knowledge. They allegedly preserve detailed records of supernatural events, miraculous occurrences, and spiritual encounters that mainstream science doesn't acknowledge. Their goal is to ensure that future humans understand the spiritual dimensions of existence, not just the material ones. The most intriguing aspect of this protocol is that it allegedly includes messages for future civilizations. detailed explanations of current human society, our spiritual beliefs, and warnings about mistakes to avoid. These messages are supposedly updated regularly as world events unfold. Vatican officials allegedly believe that human civilization goes through cycles of advancement and collapse, and that their role is to help future civilizations rebuild more wisely. This would explain the Vatican's obsessive record-keeping and their careful preservation of ancient knowledge. Mystery 17. The Secret Saint Network. The Catholic Church has canonized thousands of saints over the centuries, but Vatican archives allegedly contain evidence of many more holy people whose sainthood has been deliberately kept secret. These hidden saints supposedly continue to perform miracles today, but their identities are protected for various reasons. Some of these secret saints are allegedly still alive, living ordinary lives while possessing extraordinary spiritual powers. The Vatican supposedly maintains contact with them through a network known as the Mystical Body, a secret organization that coordinates supernatural assistance during global crises. These hidden saints allegedly played crucial roles in major historical events, using their spiritual powers to influence outcomes without public recognition. Vatican records supposedly document their interventions during both world wars, various natural disasters, and other critical moments in human history. The most remarkable claim is that these secret saints can communicate with each other across vast distances through prayer, creating a kind of spiritual internet that allows for instant coordination of supernatural assistance wherever it's needed. The Vatican's role in this network is supposedly to identify new hidden saints, provide them with spiritual support, and coordinate their activities when global situations require supernatural intervention. The identities of current hidden saints are allegedly known only to the Pope and a select group of Vatican mystics. Mystery 18. The Astronomical Prophecies. The Vatican operates one of the world's most advanced astronomical observatories, officially for scientific research. But Vatican archives allegedly contain prophecies that connect specific astronomical events with earthly catastrophes, creating a kind of celestial calendar of future disasters. These prophecies, compiled from various saints and mystics, supposedly predicted major historical events by referencing specific positions of planets, appearances of comets, and other astronomical phenomena. The accuracy of these predictions allegedly convinced Vatican astronomers that there's a real connection between celestial and terrestrial events. Most disturbing, these astronomical prophecies supposedly predict a series of cosmic events in the near future that will coincide with unprecedented earthly disasters. Vatican astronomers allegedly track these cosmic events with the same intensity that meteorologists track dangerous storms. The Vatican's astronomical prophecies supposedly include specific dates for future catastrophes, allowing church leadership to prepare for crises before they occur. This advanced warning system allegedly explains some of the Vatican's seemingly prescient statements about global challenges. Mystery 19. The Resurrection Files. Throughout history, the Catholic Church has documented cases of people returning from the dead. Not just near-death experiences, but actual resurrections. While most of these cases remain unverified, Vatican archives allegedly contain detailed medical documentation of several cases that defy scientific explanation. These resurrection files supposedly include witness testimonies, medical examinations, and even photographs of people who died and returned to life. The most compelling cases allegedly involve individuals who were clinically dead for hours or even days before spontaneously returning to life with detailed accounts of their afterlife experiences. What makes these cases particularly intriguing is that the returnees allegedly brought back specific information they couldn't have known. Details about deceased relatives, future events, and spiritual realities that were later verified. Vatican investigators supposedly maintain strict documentation standards for these cases, treating them as seriously as any scientific study. The final mystery, the Vatican's end times preparation. Perhaps the most chilling secret in Vatican archives is their detailed preparation for the end times. Based on centuries of prophecy and their interpretation of current world events, Vatican officials allegedly believe we're approaching the final chapter of human history. This preparation supposedly includes everything from preserving essential religious artifacts to establishing secret communication networks with Catholic communities worldwide. The Vatican allegedly has detailed protocols for maintaining church leadership and spiritual guidance, even if Rome itself becomes uninhabitable. But the most remarkable aspect of their end times preparation is spiritual. The Vatican supposedly has access to supernatural resources, blessed objects, sacred relics, and divine interventions that will be deployed during humanity's final crisis. The question that haunts Vatican corridors late at night is simple. When will these preparations be needed? The answer may lie in those sealed archives, in prophecies too terrifying to reveal, waiting for the moment when humanity will need them most. As we've journeyed through these 20 forbidden mysteries, one thing becomes clear. The Vatican possesses knowledge that could fundamentally change how we understand history, reality, and our place in the universe. These aren't just historical curiosities or religious speculation. They're carefully guarded secrets that Vatican officials believe could destabilize civilization itself. But perhaps the most intriguing question isn't what secrets the Vatican is hiding, but why they're hiding them. Are these revelations truly too dangerous for humanity to handle? Or is the Church protecting its own authority by controlling access to transformative knowledge? The truth may be more complex than either explanation. The Vatican has survived for 2,000 years by carefully managing the release of information, understanding that knowledge without proper context can be more destructive than helpful. They've seen civilizations rise and fall, witnessed humanity's capacity for both transcendent wisdom and devastating folly. In their sealed archives, alongside prophecies of doom and evidence of miracles, the Vatican may possess something even more valuable: the wisdom to know when humanity is ready for its own secrets. Until that time comes, these mysteries will remain locked away, guarded by an institution that has made itself the keeper of humanity's most dangerous knowledge. The question that remains is simple. When the time comes for these secrets to be revealed, will we be ready for what we might discover? Or are some truths too powerful for any civilization to bear? If you've made it this far, you've glimpsed just the surface of what may be hidden in those ancient vaults. Subscribe to explore more forbidden knowledge, and remember, sometimes the most important question isn't what we know, but what we're not allowed to know.